Next, Pepe.
Hello everyone and good morning. Welcome to another episode of DJ 360.
I'm sorry, that's not a voice that I'm going to continue to use. Anyhow, Chad McKinney is back with more. Now, if you're wondering where he showed up in the first place, I highly recommend checking this video out that addresses core tech, which is the largest hurdle and obstacle to making Star Citizen a reality. And Chad McKinney was very upfront, super honest and very frank in this discussion between him and Lando and calling all devs. I think it was August 28th. I'll put that link in the comments or in the description section below. Check it out. Like he really gets into it. He talks about the issues. He talks about Icache. He talks about a lot of the server issues that they're having. This is at the top of the list, guys. This is the most important thing in terms of making the dream become a reality. And then he comes back here on Reddit to answer even more questions. Now, I like this. I'm not the most knowledgeable when it comes to a lot of these server issues, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to read some of these things. And the fam is here, and maybe they can help me out in certain parts that I'm just not understanding. It's never enough for the community, says Red Bear. People want to know every little detail. I mean, I can't blame them, man. You know, I mean, like, there's a lot of money in this, and like some people put a lot of money into this. You know, it's in my interest of serving my community in Star Citizen. I like to know what's going on. I love the development side of things. I personally have a lot more knowledge in terms of game development than I ever had following this project for 5 years. And I like that. I like that it's given me this look inside on what happens in order to take a game from like concept in your brain to getting it out. So it has been a fun journey for me, but I get like Red Bear saying, like sometimes it's like really getting microscopic, but you know, this is a huge issue for a lot of people right now. Chad McKinney's back, server meshing from first principles being explored. So they've got a post here and of that question being asked, and Chad says, you cannot divorce a technical endeavor from the context it works within. So basically what that question is saying is like, you know, like, can we just go back to the beginning and write this up with a new engine that's more accommodative to, you know, server meshing and the tech that you guys are trying to achieve? It's what this question, I believe, is asking. And Chad is replying, and he says, you cannot divorce a technical endeavor from the context it works within. I can think of many different ways to create some concept of a server mesh, but the only one that matters is the one that solves the problems of the game we have. We have to make decisions along the way about questions like how fundamentally do we need to change the game. Thank you, Techno. You came in like a soothing breeze, Techno. Thank you for those bits, bro. So he says he needs to ask questions like how fundamentally do we need to change the game, and variations of approaches with time trade-offs. So how do you balance it, right? So he says like, hey, we have to look at the problems that are right in front of our face, right on our nose. It can be interesting to consider what it would have been like if we wrote the engine from scratch with this in mind instead of modifying the engine we have. But in the end, they don't amount to much more than interesting introspection. So he's like, hey, dude, we're not going to like scrap what we currently have to start over, even though it might be a better experience because, hey, now that we understand the problems ahead of us, you know, we could in essence do that, but that's not what we're dealing with. So we're not going to be doing it. As an aside, just briefly as a programmer, I see thinking like this a lot that try to look at things from an overly abstracted point of view, but I don't think this is the most productive approach. It's not. I mean, currently, like, could you imagine? Because there are a lot of people out there that say do it. And like, that's very extremist view, because you're basically scrapping the amount of work that's been done. I mean, sometimes it's a good idea to start over fresh, but I think in this instance, we're like way past that point. It's a good topic. It's a good topic of conversation. Yeah, and Dev says that he thinks a lot of the angst right now is from is from the communication flow between the community and Cloud Imperium. Somebody needs to have words to the dude that just asked to start SC development over against his J-dubs. Yeah. And Dutch even says, I would not want to deal with that. And I'm an engineer, says Dutch. So, I mean, like, you can see here, we got people who are experienced in those fields. And, like, you know, I don't think that's doable. I don't think starting from scratch is a doable thing. Client-side OCS reduced tick rates in entries and entity states. This is great. Like, I have to say, I really like that Chad did this. And like I said, like I put the link down. Some of these issues are being reiterated on this Reddit post that were discussed on Ask the Devs from August 28th. And if you guys missed that, it's like even if you aren't like into that kind of nomenclature and that kind of like area of game design, if you are a Star Citizen fan, I would highly recommend that you check that particular episode out because he really does address these issues. And he says in the interview with Jared, he's like, yes, this is a problem. Like, we are having problems. Like there was no lying. There was no song and dance by Chad. I really appreciate this dude. Like, this dude is really upfront with you. And, you know, interestingly enough, as a side note, did you know he was a musician? He's got his like own page with like his music isn't bad. I kind of dig like you get kind of inside his brain when you go to his page and you can see like he's piecing shit together, like even in his graphics and stuff. But anyhow, stop writing music, Chad. No. Get to work, Chad. No, just teasing, Chad. Just teasing. So here we got another interesting area here. So he says, I read that client-side OCS allowed the engine to skip update ticks for certain entities based on distance to the player. Okay. And what he's saying is the client side is our side. OCS is object container streaming. It's a method in which objects load faster, or not load faster, but it's a method in which like every asset has a box around it or an object container, okay, that gets inserted, and the engine then brings it up into existence. And there's talking between the client side base and the server side base. The server side base is everything concentrated through Cloud Imperium side, which is handled by AWS, which is Amazon Web Services. So I understand I'm getting a little bit more technical with some people, but I kind of want to get you guys on the know of what's being talked about here. So Chad's then saying, I read that client-side OCS allowed the engine to skip update ticks for certain entities based on distance to the player. The further away an entity is or an asset, the more ticks are skipped. Does this mean that for the entity, the actual game tick rate in the game loop is being reduced on the server? Or does that only refer to the network update tick rate to the player client? So he's talking about the distance of load speeds between your own experience and other assets around you, and the communication between those assets and your own experience. So then Chad says, client-side OCS allows us to stream out entities on clients so that they don't update at all, and this does not affect the server behavior whatsoever. That's great. That's a very clear answer. There is a separate entity component update system that handles updating spawned entities, and this allows for many various configurations to optimize performance, including distance to players, player visibility, time ranges, etc. But this update policy will be the same on the server and client for any given entity component. That is essentially like they're synchronizing both client and server side, is what Chad is saying. That is what he's saying. So then he says, on a similar note, Does the player client, by the way, I love the commentary here, fam. Keep it up. Like, it's great. Like, when people watch this video, I'm so happy you guys are doing this. Like, this is wonderful. Like, I really want people who are interested in this, watching this, understand exactly what's being talked about here. And you guys, me talking about this and you guys talking here as well. Thank you. You guys are doing wonderful. Client side, so then he says, on a similar note, does the player client itself simulate the nearby entities like the game server does and roll back overwrite certain states when the state between client and server don't line up anymore? So he's saying, is that happening actually here on my side? What we would know as rubber banding or desync, or does the player client merely receive the changed states of the entity from the server and update its own state without simulating its own state as well? That's pretty self-explanatory. You can pick it apart and figure that out. If the latter is the case, is the upcoming actor networking rework a step toward the former? These are actually, that's a pretty good question. Chad says the most straightforward approaches will just snap to the server state on the client. But the programmers can always make more sophisticated systems that handling things like interpolation to make the client behavior look more natural. And yes, this is part of the work for the actor network changes. Player movement, what does Dutch say? This is not just the graphics engine, it's also the backend tools, the Amazon architecture and Amazon backend, including Icache, which is a huge deal, says Dutch. Great. Thank you, Dutch. Let's see, where were we? The most straightforward approaches will just snap to blah, 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 blah. But programmers can always make more sophisticated systems that handle things like interpolation to make the client behavior. And yes, this is part of the work for the actor network changes. Player movement and animation is something people are highly attuned to seeing flaws in. Yes, we are humans after all, and getting it looking natural and fluid is a ton of work. So a lot of the character movements that we're experiencing really don't have anything to do with the animations, is what I'm gathering from this. It's interesting. Has everything to do with these server issues. We are humans after all, and getting it to look natural and fluid. You also have to take into consideration the impact on gameplay. He just 30K. Tech just 30K while listening to us. That's a funny joke. He's saying he just got 30K from Twitch. Are you saying because you're watching this and your mind is like melting, Tech? I thought you were playing Star Citizen while listening to us. That's funny. You also have to take into consideration the impact on gameplay. For example, your Dead Reckoning implementation may end up favoring people shooting rather than the people getting shot at, where a server discrepancy occurs. Yeah, I mean, like when you're talking about combat too, it's always got to be tight. Server meshing, traveling between meshes. Man, and like this is the wonderful thing. I don't even know if I'm going to go through all of this. Personally, I'll go through a few more, but like I will put this link down below because like each individual question and topic is labeled very clearly by Chad, and he's like, here's threads on these different issues. Like this is very well done. Chad did a pretty good job on this. Chad McKinney says a particular mesh of servers, what we refer to as a shard, is completely enclosed from each other, and you cannot automatically transition from one shard to another. They are independent simulations with their own, our view of the persistent state of the world. When does the persistence for the character come? Aha! And he talked a lot about this on the last Inside Star Citizen. Or not on the, I'm sorry, on the last Calling All Devs, the one that I'm going to link below on August 28th. He talked in depth about this issue. So he says, with Icache and global persistence, we'll be maintaining server shard histories beyond the lifetime of the servers. And this will allow us to do things like full recovery after a server crash. This may not be part of the first rollout of the system, but it is something we've been keeping in consideration throughout our design and implementation. As far as freight, in addition to the global persistence reconnect behavior, we have long intended to have cargo and item insurance to further protect against both gameplay behavior as well as bugs. I can tell you that is one of the most painful feelings in the world for citizens. Those that trade, that have like a full hold, like flying around in their cat, and then boom, a 30K hits. Like that is probably what I've literally can hear shrieks come from my Discord server when something of that nature happens. This is why we introduced more ship persistence in 3.0. We got ship insurance in the same release. Otherwise, bugs and crashes would have been too punishing. This is also another reason why we were introducing the LTP database. Request for Star Citizen as a case study or white paper for agile SDLCs in gaming. I don't consider myself an expert in project management theory, so I may not be the best to answer this in the broad, but I can speak to my own experience in the industry. To date, all the projects I've worked on have all utilized some version of agile development. When I began at CIG, we did not. I knew that, actually. However, a couple years in there was a big shift to push towards agile. And it makes sense with everything they're working on. With parts of the company doing either Scrum, feature teams, or Kanban content pipelines like ship content teams, etc. We do have our own twist on things as we divide up the company using what we call pillars. Interesting that they're calling them pillars. Each with their own director who report to Chris. That said, I'm not sure in the big picture we've really evolved agile practices in some novel way, but again, I'm not an expert in this domain. Good afternoon, Green Thumb. What's going on, bro? Engineering is art of compromise, says Dev. Yep. Pillar talk, anyone, says Dev. Let's see here. Vending machines, will they work someday? Oh my gosh. Work has been done on vending machines for things like the prisons, and there's more to come as well for vending machine behavior. A good option would be to add persistence of items in ships so we can leave water and food stored in our ships. This already works. There have been some bugs here and there, but it should be working fairly well now. So he's got a video on there as well. Pillow talk equal nap time, says right here. CPU optimization work. Some people are rocking them old chips, man. Broadly speaking, the game is highly multi-threaded. By far the most multi-threaded game I've worked on, and yes, more cores will perform better. This will also improve the translation. Get yourself more cores. You want CPU optimization? Buy yourself a new CPU. This will also improve as the game develops, as we are constantly pushing the game to work more in parallel with old shit. That said, the improvement won't map linearly to number of cores. Okay. And I haven't profiled those exact three systems against each other, so I wouldn't want to speak to the exact numbers. Buy new shit. Would it be possible to have a ship index search with new building block and mobiGlass? An index search for ship in the ship's summoning terminal instead of endlessly scrolling to find the list of ships. God bless you with this question. Whoever asked that. J-Dubs, get good. There's a lot of ways we could go about making large collections easier. We could group them by type, allow fuzzy. Listen, what we're saying as a community is make that shit better. There's a lot of cussing happening right now. Apologies. I'm gonna tone myself down. No, I'm not. No, that said, most players in the game don't have so many ships where this has been high priority enough to push on yet. It's not just their own ships. It's like a whole rework of how the UI is categorized within mobiGlass, within kiosks. You know, like I think there needs to be a rework of how things are categorized and organized. Using the new building block system, if we could translate the building block system directly into the mobiGlass, I think that would be better. No, this is how I am with or without coffee. J-Dubs. What's up, Milk? How you doing, buddy? Good to see you on the stream. They are planning on that, but I want to see it now, Dutch. No, I'm just teasing. I can just see people raging at me. Did you see DG talking about this? Did you see him? It's totally unacceptable. DG's behavior. What is he doing? I don't know. I just feel this rush of energy. I just felt this rush. Is it possible to have a better missile equipping system? Currently, it is a pain to equip 60 missiles. Dutch says that is definitely not tea. Trust me, it was. And we won't talk about that tea bag. That was for the stream, not for this video. We won't talk about the tea bag. There's a lot of ways we can go about making large collections easier, blah, blah, blah. Okay, is it possible to have a better missile equipping system? Currently, it is a pain to equip 60 missiles one by one with upcoming new building block system. Pretty please. I would say yeah. This whole flow is going to get re-examined with move to physicalized inventory by the actor team. I don't want to speak too much for them on the design direction, but there is movement there. Yeah, I would say the answer to that question is yes. It absolutely has to be. There has to be a rework. Conditioning, and like Dutch has said, like that is already planned in actually. Wow. And there's his Twitter. Dude, why am I not following this dude? Yeah, I'm following that dude. I would highly recommend you guys do the same. Like this dude is on it, and this guy is with the community. He's communicating directly with you guys. Even on Reddit, the most toxic area ever that it ever existed. And Chad McKinney's just stepping in, wading in the toxicity. He's just like, I'm fine. The water's fine. Like, Chad doesn't care. Chad's awesome. I like Chad. Hashtag, I like Chad. Good for you, Chad. Way to step up. Way to step up, man. August 28th, he shows on a Calling All Devs, talks about the issues with server tech, talks about Icache, gets in depth. I'm not quite sure how long that was. It was over 30 minutes. And then boom, comes in on a Reddit post, organizes it nice and neatly, puts links referring to the topics that he's talking about. Chad, you get an A+ from the DG360 community, bro. I don't know what that means to you, but like, dude, I'm gonna have J-Dubs print you out an A+. He got a new printer, and we're gonna print you something out, like some type of trophy, something. Chad, we're gonna make it worth your while. So I'm really happy to see this kind of communication happen with a CIG employee and the community. He went out of his way to do this, and I am going to, I think, a round of applause right there for Chad McKinney. He did not have to do any of this. Jade Zub says, can we be a little bit more specific on exactly what we need to print? We'll talk about it, Jay. All right, everybody comment below. This is hitting the YouTube channel. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you guys on the next vid or stream. Don't worry, if you're here live, I'm not going anywhere. We got more stream to go.